Hey gentlefolk, my name is Malte Krug. Welcome back to another episode of All About Keys. In the last few episodes of this series I showed you some drum computers, and due to being a novelty in the day, mostly FM synthesizers. Yamaha caught everybody by surprise with the JX7, and the competing companies either went down, like most of the American manufacturers, or struggled to come up with a worthy opponent to this milestone from 1983. Roland, for example, needed 4 more years to issue the D50 in 1987, but managed to finally achieve a similar success and gain some market share back with it. But before that, they offered a synthesizer which was based on tried and tested technology, and which I'm going to feature a little later in this video. At this time, if you need a shortcut. But first let's see what else this month's issue of the German Keyboard Magazin has to offer. Business as usual, the content list, and the letters to the editor. This month, the news section consists of a report of then new products that got introduced at the Frankfurt Musikmesse. This Messe, the European NAMM so to speak, has been really relevant in the day more than a decade before the internet got invented. So this part could get a bit longer than usual this time. Keyboard-wise, the major sensations in 1985 were still MIDI and sound sampling. Last month's news already covered the main players Yamaha and Roland. This time, it's a bit of Korg and Oberheim's massive Matrix 12, which is basically a double expander which sports the so-called MIDI monomode, which just means that each voice can be targeted by its own MIDI channel. This concept later evolved into MIDI multimode with polyphonic use of more than one sound coming from the same instrument. I only heard good things about the XK MIDI master keyboard, but so far never used one. Up here, they mention the Soundkönig sampler with phenomenal new functions, like time stretching for example. This machine never got made in series, and this is the only photo I ever saw of it. I had to dig a bit in a different magazine to find one in color for you. I think that some of its technical groundwork went into the Akai S1000 from a few years later. Kruma presented the rack version of their Bit 1 analog synthesizer, the Bit.01. I have one in the rack over there, and I like it very much. Leave a comment if you like a video about this nice sounding machine. Passing over a modular system, which was out of fashion then, but got back being sought after a few decades later, when Döpfer released the first Euro modules. We get to the Ensoniq Mirage. Then it was seen as a sensation to get multi-sampling possibilities into the hands of the regular musician for a reasonable price, and it became a massive success for Ensoniq. For me it was still too much in 1985, but compared to the big systems like Fairlight, Synclavier or an emulator, this thing was a bargain. Although the technical specs were downgraded in comparison to get to the price of $1,700. Up here the MU Drumulator is briefly mentioned. PPG presented their weighted action PRKA master keyboard for the PPG Wave system and the version B of the Waveterm sampling system, which works with a 16-bit resolution now. Versi, mostly famous for their organs, as you can see on the right, came up with a new synthesizer, the MK1. Here you can see mine. It's a not so versatile synth with only one filter for all voices. Like most other Versi instruments, these were also sold as kits, which of course were cheaper than the factory-built models. If you want to see or hear more about this, leave a comment down below. Sequential Circuits presented 2 new units, the multitrack synthesizer as the successor of the 6-track and the Tom drum machine as a cheaper alternative for the drum tracks. Akai introduced the first sampler coming out of Japan with the S612, which could hold one sample only, but had faders to alter the start and end of the sample. I never had one, but I own the external disk drive. This ME20A MIDI arpeggiator didn't get released in this form, but as a 19-rack unit. I have it here. The other photos are showing interesting prototypes of never-released equipment, like this version of the VX90 shown here. Announced as the rack unit of the also never-released AX90 synthesizer. There has been a different VX90 a year later, which was the rack of the AX73. Then in the now familiar Akai grey color scheme. The RZ1000 was supposed to be a MIDI hardware sequencer, The CPZ-1000, they call it MIDI Communication Center here, was rumored to evolve into a recording system of some kind in combination with the EZ-1000. Sorry for the poor picture quality, there was nothing else to find of these prototypes other than photos in this article. At the end they mentioned the MX76 MIDI Master keyboard, and that actually got released 4 years later. But it looked different then to what they show here on this page. And finally, the Yellinghouse DX Programmer, a remote editing hardware unit for programming 6-operator DX synthesizers. It's very blue and only about 25 or so of this were made. I only saw one in a shop here in my hometown once, but never used it. And so far for the Messe news. This month's giveaway is a hardware-software combination from Korg. The KMS30 synchronizer, which got tested in the last issue, and the Korg 8-track MIDI sequencer for the C64 home computer. This has been originally made by Steinberg. As a continuation of last month's feature about the classics, here's the second part about ARP and a chronological mentioning of their products starting with the 2600 up to the decline and end of the company. The test of the emulator 2 is divided into 2 parts. This is part 1, and here the basic functionality of a sampler is explained with the emulator as an example. Sampling was still a novelty, and due to the exorbitant prices of those samplers, not everybody knew how they actually worked and what the fuss was all about. Followed by a test of the Sequential Max, which is kind of a preset version of the 6-track. It has 20 RAM slots for your own sounds, but these can only be altered by using a software editor or a 6-track itself, and won't stay in the Max when you power down. This Fostex reverb could be of interest again today, because it's a stereo spring reverb. Together with analog delays, these seem to be sought after again for a little while now. The Roland SBX80 Sync Box. One would have needed such a unit to sync up tape recorders, MIDI sequencers and gear that only reacts to pulses. You can even sync material that has already been recorded onto tape, as long as you still had one track available. Record the empty code on the empty track, and while you have the SBX listen to said code track again, you feed it with a manual played click on a cowbell or similar. Or you hit one of the panel keys in rhythm, or feed a click track if you recorded one from the same tape into the audio input. From this, the SBX will calculate a tempo reference, which then can be used in conjunction with a MIDI sequencer or whatnot. Sounds like a pretty versatile piece of gear to me. Sound Börse with sounds which got sent in by readers of the magazine, and the technology tip and workshop area again. Here on the left, the circuit diagram of a DIY MIDI interface for the Sinclair Spectrum computers, and on the right a workshop about a MIDI sequencer software for the C64, including a listing of the program one could type in manually. The drum computer programming workshop this month took care of funk grooves. Here you get taught about inversions and other things you can do with basic chords. The third and final part of the workshop series about blues piano. The home recording workshop is all about microphones this time, explaining the various types and polar patterns. But now to the featured unit of this month. The Roland JX8P. Like a lot of synthesizer companies, Roland got surprised by the success of the Yamaha DX7 and its digital sound aesthetics. Until they could come up with a machine that could break the FM synth supremacy, they tried to stay afloat in putting tried and tested technology into cost-effective packagings. The JX8P is one of these products on their way before they had a major success with the D50 in 1987. Let's take a look. Okay, as you can see, Roland tried to cut costs in getting rid of most of those annoyingly expensive faders and knobs on the surface of the synthesizer. They might have thought that people accepted this choose a parameter and edit with a single fader concept from the DX7 and used it too. Well, it works, and you can program the JX8P in detail, but if you prefer a lot of faders for a better hands-on approach, you had to invest a few $100 more to add the PG800 external programming unit. This would be placed on top of the synthesizer at the right-hand corner. Unfortunately, as you can see, I don't have said programmer. There are modern substitutes available nowadays, hardware and software. Let's switch it on. The display, by the way, is not flickering. In reality, that happens due to the frame rate of the cameras. This is Roland's first synthesizer in which you can name your patches. Speaking of patches, you have 2 ROM banks of 32 sounds each and a RAM bank of the same size of 32 for your own creations, which can be doubled in using a memory cartridge like this.
The names of the first 32 ROM patches are printed onto the corresponding sound buttons, and for some reason this looks amateurish to me. It just reminds me of cheap entertainer keyboards, but maybe they just didn't want to have empty buttons with only numbers on them on the front panel. Unlike the older JX8P, this synth's keypad is velocity and aftertouch sensitive, although the latter tends to pack up over time and it is not functioning in a lot of used units. And so it's the same in this one. I never bothered to repair this so far because I mostly play and program my JX8P through MIDI using my trusted Sound Diver software, but to show you the sound engine structure, I'm using a screenshot from the editor in MIDI-Quest. It is the well-known and established oscillator filter amplifier concept, but in this case, all of these are not controlled by voltage but digitally. As you can see, 2 DCOs, 1 DCF, and 1 DCA plus 2 envelope generators per voice, of which we have 6. Those 2, basically identical oscillators generate saw, pulse, or square waves and noise. They can be tuned individually in various octaves, and the second oscillator in addition can be fine-tuned for those nice fat chorusy effects. If you don't have the PG800 programmer, you have to use the list of parameters which is printed here on the surface. It's not very extensive. So if we want to check for the fine-tune of the second oscillator, it's parameter 25. We hit the parameters button and number 25. It shows detune. And they used it a bit in this sound already. While being at it, we can check the front from left to right. You got the cartridge slot, obviously, the volume slider, which actually works, other than the aftertouch amount slider, because like I said, the aftertouch in the keypad is broken. Here's the edit slider, which we're going to use a lot. Bend range, whose effect I can't show because the bender is broken as well, but the modulation is working. I will fix all this at some point, but as mentioned, I'm playing it mostly through MIDI. Portamento. The JX8P spots 2 audio outputs for sounding wide in stereo, but this is only working when you switch on the internal chorus. When it's off, both outputs dump out the same signal. Unfortunately, the chorus seems to add a bit of hiss to the signal, but it sounds good, so I can live with it. The synthesizer got released before it was common to have built-in effects units, so I will add some external reverb in post to make it sound a bit nicer. All those buttons, by the way, are really DX7 style under this foil. They really try to cut costs. Or go with the fashion. Typical glassy and metallic FM sounds were the sought-after sound aesthetic in those days, so some of the sounds of this machine I'm gonna show you later are heavily inspired by the DX7. Here are the bank switches for the internal preset bank and cartridges. The patch chain is exactly that. You can use that for live performances, for example, chaining together 8 sounds even from different banks to speed up patch change. So a cartridge sound might follow a preset or an internal sound. I'm not showing it here because the only way to actually get out of patch chain mode is to switch off the machine. 3 buttons for different aftertouch destinations. For the already mentioned reason, I can't show you what the effects sound like. Then there are various key modes. Poly is actually the regular play mode, where you can play 6 voices. Unison is 2 voices stacked per note, which results in even fatter sounds. But we're down to 3-note polyphony. Solo is just 1 voice in mono mode for those typical synthesizer solo sounds. Last note priority, and it would even be nicer to have that in unison mode. And the red buttons are for storing patches into memory and to copy from and to cartridge. In the list and in MIDI-Quest's overview, we can see that there is, in addition to the regular VCF, a static high-pass filter. It might come handy to get rid of some pesky bass. Yeah. And it's possible to cross-modulate the 2 oscillators. Unfortunately, unlike in the DX7, the edit fader doesn't latch to the last parameter it edited when you switch back to a play mode. So we can't have real-time filter cutoff control on the fader now. That would be nice. For that you would need the hardware editor. It's nice not having to hit the key again to hear any alterations while editing the sound. The DX7 can't do this. Well, we have a VCA and we have 2 envelopes with 3 destinations. And that's it. It's the well-known concept of subtractive synthesis with 2 oscillators, and it sounds pretty good. Let us go through some of the sounds this synth got delivered with. I won't play all of the factory patches, some of them are really not good. You could get far better sounds out of the synthesizer if you put in some effort yourself. Oh, by the way, the keyboard is not very good. It's very clacky, and I don't like it. I know it's a matter of taste, and for others it might be perfectly good, but I prefer the Yamaha keyboard from the SY77 upwards. With this sound, they definitely try to mimic the DX7 piano. Similar bellish, but less rich in texture. Yeah. It's definitely noticeable that we only have 6 voices, especially when I'm using the pedal. Like here. This doesn't exactly sound like strings to me, but it's cool. It's dynamic, but still no strings. The low and high strings patches might really go good together as a layered pad sound in the next generation JX, the JX10, which can actually play 2 of these sounds simultaneously. Voices. On par with DX7 choirs, but not comparable to samples. These are good for layering. I like the lower part. I like the bass. The upper register is a bit boring. More clicky. Pipe organ. Not too bad if you need such a sound. Maybe if you layer this with the pipe organ I used last month from the TX816, that could be a nice combo. Timbales. Really? Music box. Tries to compete with the DX7 and loses. Wind chimes. Those are actually nice. Bass. Another sound that seems to try emulating a DX7 bass. But still, there's something unique in it. Synth bass. Not too shabby. Soundtrack, which has the name of the famous DF50 sound. nice pad, not like the D50 soundtrack, but this is a good example of what we want these synthesizers for. Fat fifth. Somehow, personally, I never had any use for these sounds. Res bell. A rather thin sound. I guess they used a high-pass filter for this. Let's check. Yep. Wave aura. Toms. Definitely a sound from the 80s inspired by Simmons drums, although this also could fit into the disco era from the 70s. Clavinet. I know that this is crap. Yep. Res lead. I like how this responds to velocity. Square lead. No pitch bender. Pretty thin, but okay. Polybrass. I bet this is a really fat one.
Nice.
Layered with a fat brass sound from the TX816 from last month, that could sound really nice. And people did this in the day to get best of both worlds, I guess, resulting in an analog-digital hybrid, thanks to MIDI. Soft brass. I like the way it reacts. Like it says, soft. Step brass. Compared to the other two brass sounds, this is a bit boring. Agogo bell. Bad synthetic cowbell down here, but better in the higher register. And again, trying to compete with the DX7. Church bell. If you don't hit it too hard, it sounds good. Up here, it's really good. Just in case you're wondering, once in a while I can use such sounds for theater work. Bubbles. Although it gets faster when you go higher on the keyboard, this is not a sample. The LFO was tied to the keyboard pitch. I'm gonna lift the keys. Yeah, I guess we won't need that often. The other ROM bank starts with more pianos. We ignore them. Strings 1. Oh well, strings 2. Marimba. Let's try to sound like a DX7 again. Harpsichord. Down here it doesn't sound that good. Up here it's actually not too bad. Kalimba. Trying to emulate a DX7 again, are we? Vibes. I like this. It's not a vibraphone, but it definitely has some vibes. Upright bass. I like the dynamic, but it doesn't sound anything like an upright bass. Synthclav. That's nicer than the other one we had earlier. Recorder is a sound that haunted us in elementary school. I heard worse. Not too bad.
Flutes.
A bit tame. Let's emulate a DX7 for the next Tina Turner cover song version. Metalette. Very usable. I like those sounds that go into some frequency range that other instruments don't cover. Similar pad to the other one, just with this effect when you lift the key. Not a gong. That could be some sound drone in the background of a TV episode set in a cliched 1950s electronic lab, just before an accident or something. Not an acoustic guitar. Celeste. As you can hear, they're using square waves to emulate this. This is very low for a double bass. Filter flow. And those are the sounds I want from an analog Roland. I'm holding the pedal like it tells me to. Nice. Hollow pad. Is it going to be hollow? Obviously some square waves involved again. Nice. I like it. Invert circ. Whatever that's for. Laser gun. Pew pew. Nah. Myra. I like that one. That's really nice. Okay, next. Open wide. Is that the dentist simulator? It is. That's funny. Roto piano. This is actually nice. It's not a piano, but it's really nice. Salamand. Let's see what this is. Okay, manages to sell a mood, at least. Touch Ow. Vidiots. That name is good. And I didn't make that one up. People who know me know what I connect with that name. More effect sounds we will need. Wet brass. I like it.
The JX8P is a solid, good-sounding analog synthesizer. It's good for producing those fatty brass sounds and lush analog strings we all love. It just shouldn't try to copy a DX7. In the day, a JX8P and a DX7 actually weren't the worst combination as a keyboard rig. Both complement each other well and both cover the other's weaknesses in sounds. Just add a small mixer and a capable effect unit and I wouldn't have a problem to play a whole gig with these two even today. Next month's issue brings more news from the Musikmesse 1985, but not as extensively as this time. And again, I won't feature a synthesizer or sampler per se, but a unit I still use sometimes for composing when I'm tired of just pushing a mouse. It's been one of the most capable machines for this from this era, and I will show it together with some sound generators of the day. As usual, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe so you won't miss any of the upcoming videos on this channel. See you soon on All About Keys.